This will be a short video about Highland Avenue in South Nyack, known locally as the Roosevelt Road, because Teddy Roosevelt used to hike across this road when he was governor of New York. Highland Avenue was originally an Indian trail that ran from the New Jersey border through Orangetown. When 9W was formed, it took most of Highland Avenue, except for a portion between Piermont and South Nyack. So we'll begin in South Nyack. At the Nyack border, the road runs up past the intermediate school and the old Nyack College property, then makes a turn to the west and heads up, and then makes a turn back to the east and runs around the mountain. This area where you see the arrows has not been paved. It's nearly 250 years old, and in the early 1800s, it was the primary way farmers got to the port of Nyack. In the last 70 years or so, it's been almost used exclusively for recreational hiking, dog walking, skiing in the winter, etc. We'll take a rundown from Balance Rock at the village line on what's now called Tweed Boulevard, but which is actually the original Highland Avenue, to where this unpaved section meets it. And we notice there's a locked gate across this. New York, a locked gate means no trespassing. You go by it, you can get arrested. And it shouldn't be across a public road. You might want to limit vehicles, but a gate is not appropriate. Even worse, a couple of years ago, signs began appearing throughout the woods that the whole area was private property and there was no trespassing, and violators would be prosecuted and whatnot. This was complicated by also, after the Biznets bought the Nyack College property, they put out 2x4s with ropes on them for religious reasons, and their security told people they weren't allowed to go through there, particularly at the north end of Highland Avenue. Well, as we start out, the road is fairly smooth. It's slightly downhill. It's a nice, easy walk or ride on a bicycle. About 800 feet into it, you begin to see a large water tower. And this is a water tower of the Nyack Water Department that's been put there to provide pressure for the people of South Nyack who live on the mountain. It's surrounded with chain link and barbed wire. It has numerous alarms and cameras, and they only control a 50 square foot area, but they took over the whole area. They claim that this is for security reasons, but they haven't had any security problems. If you look at it, you don't even see any graffiti on this thing. And to make it even more amazing, Veolia, which is security crazy and has taken over the historic center of Orangetown with concentration camp fences everywhere and whatnot, maintains a water tower 1,000 feet away to supply the residents of Upper Grandview. No alarms, no chain link. It's remarkable. These tanks are a half an inch thick steel, and you need a bazooka or something if you're going to damage them. Well, just past the water tower, the road goes slightly downhill and begins to wind around the mountain. This whole area here, it feels like it's straight when you're on it, but it actually curves around the eastern face of the mountain. Initially, you're very high up, and you're aware of it. The top of the mountain is on the western side, and on the east there are very steep slopes and cliffs, etc. And as you start out, you really have the feeling that you're somewhere out in the wilderness. The road was considerably wider, but it's becoming overgrown with invasive trees. And traditionally, these were removed by the users, but they're afraid to now that the Biznets and the water company are trying to take over. In the summertime, it's an interesting feeling because with all the leaves on the trees, you feel like you're driving down this lush tunnel. In winter, without the leaves on the trees, you get spectacular views of the river and the countryside. And as you start to get down the trail, you realize you're only 500 feet or so away from houses. It's still somewhat wilderness in that you're liable to run into bears or deers or eagles or whatever. As I said, these implements, these rocks and limbs would have been removed by the skiers normally, but that hasn't happened in a year or two because of all the harassment. As you ride this trail, you actually get the sense of what it was like to bring a wagon over to Nyack from Blauvelt, filled with pumpkins or something to sell. There are even places where there's sort of wagon ruts in the road. It's very pleasant, and it doesn't take long, maybe 8 minutes or so on a bicycle to do the whole trail, and 10 or 15 minutes to walk it. Towards the end, you start to come up to a place where there are very expensive houses in close proximity, and the owners of the houses know it's a public road because South Nyack was always making sure they knew that and never give us a problem. The only people who give problems are the water company and the business, and now Orangetown is playing games with it. And the bottom line is the law requires, if this is abandoned as a public road, that this property reverts to the people who live alongside of it, and they can block it off. And we don't want that to happen.